And so that was the biggest thing that we wanted to do, is be able to offer something and content that bankers could utilize, hopefully would just give them that boost to help them do their job.
Well, Chris, it is fun to be with you here in Memphis at Barrett Banking School headquarters. So great to be here with you.
Well, it's a blast to have you here, because I know you and I have met in so many different places across the country. I've never been on your home turf, and you've never been on my home turf, so it's great to have you here, and hopefully I can return the favor when we get to travel again to conferences, maybe to see you.
Yeah, we'll do a home and home. You can come to Lincoln. I've been here to Memphis.
I think our Christian Brothers University that we're at, we don't have a football team, so we couldn't come play Nebraska. But I still want to come, and hopefully being able to visit up there, I'd love to see you.
That'd be great. What a year it's been, but want to kind of back up a little bit for anybody who hasn't gotten to hang out with you. How did you end up getting into banking in the first place?
Well, growing up in lower Alabama, Andalusia, Alabama, small town, center of the state, about 80, 90 miles south of Montgomery, Alabama. And most of my family on both sides were farmers. And my parents owned a clothing store on the town square of Andalusia, Alabama, Kelley and Sons Clothing, no longer in business. But going to see...
That's where you get your good style, though,
Yeah,
from.
Exactly, of course, sure. But going to see the local banker when I was a kid, the community banks that were in town, looking up to, these bankers. But then really, the thing that really solidified it for me was, as a kid, watching It's a Wonderful Life and seeing, George Bailey, serving all of these people in this town, and how in his time of need, everybody in the town came to help him out.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want to do that. I want to be, Jimmy Stewart in this role. I want to be a banker. And so growing up, I knew when I got to college, I wanted to study banking and finance. And so I was lucky enough to fulfill two dreams. I was a baseball player.
Yeah.
Lucky enough to get a scholarship in college. So I went to the University of Tennessee. Was lucky enough to play a few years of minor league baseball in the Texas Rangers organization. But I knew that was a slim chance of me ever making a living at that. And so being able to have that degree in finance, I was able to become a banker, which I'd always wanted to do. And my wife that I had met, her job brought us to Memphis right after I was retired from baseball. I got a slip, like a lot of people do, that pink slip saying we appreciate your services, they're no longer needed. And my pink slip from the Texas Rangers was signed by George Bush, who ended up being our president, but at the time, he was the managing partner, the general manager for the Texas Rangers. And I've had people say, well, did you keep that letter? And I was like, what do you do with a letter that says you're fired? You throw it away? I didn't know he was going to be president. We moved to Memphis. I started working at a community bank that was based here in Memphis. And so I worked at National Bank of Commerce for about almost 9 years. But in that process, our bank always sent people to the banking school. It was at the time it was called Mid-South School of Banking. So I went through the banking school, was head of the Alumni Association of the banking school when Paul W. Barrett Jr., who was a banker in the area, passed away. And so some of our board members went to the estate and said, look, we'd love to have an endowment. Could you provide that? And so our board was asking for $5 million, hoping for maybe $3 million, and all of a sudden we get $8 million from the estate. And so that makes us the most highly endowed banking school in the country. And then the board said, well, we need a banker to help then lead us into the future with this, with this endowment that we have. And so I was lucky enough serving on the board, living in Memphis, and some board members just came to me and said, look, would you want to do this? And I was like, I would love this opportunity. So that was over 17 years ago. And so I've been leading the Barrett School of Banking since then. So from from growing up in South Alabama and seeing these community bankers and watching It's a Wonderful Life, and then all of a sudden coming full circle and being able to help people in a different way now, helping the bankers be better bankers. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah, well, you've done a tremendous job of making these kind of connections, right? When I talk to bankers who have gone through your program and have connected with you, there's such a connection you've had with bankers. And I want to talk a little bit about that because banking took a huge sort of huge pivot last year, where everything was sort of turned upside down, and quite honestly, bankers needed you and needed sort of some guidance in this area bigger than ever before. I want to talk a little bit about what you and your team did to kind of help at that time.
Well, I mean, banks were in survival mode, like all of us, and we had to, they're graduate schools of banking. We had to cancel our big session, even though we run things throughout the year. But any in-person training was out the window immediately. And little did we know that was going to happen last March when we were all together at ICBA convention. Right. There's this thing coming, but we'll see what happens. And then all of a sudden, we all get back home from that convention, and so we had to pivot really quickly. And the biggest thing and luckily our board is fantastic and made up of bankers from 13 or 14 different states. They were living through all of this, but then basically came to this vision of what we should be, and it's basically let's offer everything we can possibly offer: podcasts, webinars, anything that you can to give back to the industry. Since people can't travel, let's give it to them where they are. Yeah. And so having Byron Earnhardt, our programming director, just ramp up where at the time we were doing a podcast maybe every 3 weeks, and then it was like, how would you like to do one a week? He's like, okay, let's do that. And so you came on early on the podcast, but really looking at all the different lines of business, all the different lines of banking. How can we bring somebody in to talk about how it may affect somebody? So whether it's the emotional intelligence and anxiety and resiliency, or if it's the storytelling and branding and marketing side stuff that you brought to the table, or legal side, compliance. And so we just called all of our friends that we've met over the years and people that are facilitators for us and said, look, give us what you got. Whenever you can do it, we want you on. We're going to do podcasts. We're going to do webinars. It's all going to be free. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And then the board said, and why don't you also create this program, like something around crisis leadership or crisis management? So then we, decided, let's do it. And so we got some great facilitators. You were one of them, and about 25 hours of recorded content, all about managing through the crisis, and again the branding and storytelling piece, and asset liability management to help protect the bank, and the bank technology piece, working remotely, all that stuff, and then really hitting hard and heavy on emotional intelligence, anxiety, and resiliency, like we talked about some of the folks we had on the podcast, because that was one of the biggest pieces that all of us have had. It's trauma. It really is trauma, right? Because it's not just we're working differently. We've all been fearful that will we get sick? What will our parents, our grandparents, will coworkers, people have lost jobs. So people that a spouse may have lost a job. Our customers that we've known forever in the bank, that they're struggling, and how can we help them? And so that was the biggest thing that we wanted to do, is be able to offer something and content that bankers could utilize, hopefully would just give them that boost to help them do their jobs. And so it's been awesome. It's been difficult at times, like everybody else, and trying to work all these things out. But between podcasts and webinars, and then us with that pivot, our in-person programs that we turned to do via Zoom, they've been great, and the connections that we've made, it's been very fulfilling to be able to have these things to offer and know that it has given something that people needed. So it's been exciting to do.
Well, I think what you've done and what you recognized in this last year is that it's sort of like an extra MBA, right? Like that you're getting in this amount of time, because of the real world experience happening, as you're reacting to that. There's a lot of learning going on, in so many areas, and we're so much less comfortable. So I think that vulnerability that you've been able to help people to see that opportunity to learn, it's paved the way for a lot of that learning.
Well, it's a real life advanced degree that you never planned on getting.
Yeah.
And everybody talks about drinking water out of a fire hose, but that's the way it was. It wasn't a gentle turn on. It was full on, in your face, and we all had to do it, no matter what your industry. And so, I've been in complete awe of bankers and seeing the stories. And y'all, social insurance, y'all do a great job of capturing those. And I see them on Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram and all the things that y'all post on about just capturing the amazing things. These heroic things that bankers have been able to do, whether it's through the PPP process, or figuring out a way to still service their customers, doing it safely, doing it in a way that they never knew they were going to do, even though they may have written something in their strategic plan.
Right.
It's never anything any of us thought we would have to then pull off the shelf and go, okay, page 42, there, okay, that's what we're supposed to do. And so being able to do that and see what bankers have done, it's been amazing. And so looking at what we've done, I don't feel like, we've been on the ground floor in the trenches doing this. We've helped in our own way, just like you guys, helping in your own way. But to sit back and look at everything that the industry's been able to do, it's nothing short of amazing.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, it's been really fun to be here with you in Memphis, and not just because you hooked me up with some of the best barbecue I've had in my life.
Central Barbecue, the best.
Great plug for that. But it's been fun to see really your engagement with the team and just the community you're building here. I think you're extending who you are in this community across the country, and I really respect your leadership in that. It's been phenomenal to see.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm a people person. I love connecting with people. Like you, I love hearing people's stories, and that's what it gives me energy. So that's what's been hard for me, and I have to listen to the things that we put out there into the world on podcasts and webinars, and understand my own emotional intelligence and what I need, because I'm an extrovert and I need people. And I would, in our neighborhood, which I don't live far from here, I would go on walks a couple times a day with the dog and just hopefully see a friend or somebody on a porch I could talk to at a distance, just to get some kind of high from that. And so that's why I love going to conferences. I love being able to connect with people, network, figure out their needs and wants, and if there's a way that we can help provide that at the banking school, or if I can connect them with somebody else that can do that for them. That's, I feel, if I have a strength, it's making sure that I can listen to people, hear where they're coming from, have empathy, understand some of the things that they may need, and then help connect them with people that can hopefully serve those needs. And so that's what's been the most fun for me. Well,
I've seen it up close, and it's fun to watch. What does this next year look like? The rest of 2021. What do you have on tap? What do you have coming up?
Well, like everybody else, hoping later in the year that we can get back to some in-person things, and hopefully with vaccine rollouts and all those things that there's hope.
Yeah.
Which we maybe hadn't had for a while. And so we will be doing our graduate school, which normally falls in May. We're going to spread it over 3 weeks, only bring in one class at a time. So the senior class will come in 1 week, then the junior class will come in the next week, then the freshman class. So to be able to social distance and all those things to hopefully make sure we have safety protocols in place. So that's going to be our first in-person event. So we will go almost a year and a half without having an in-person event by the time that happens. And so, and it's, so many people are excited. They're still scared, but we're going to do what the pandemic protocols call for. But that'll be the first. There may be a couple conferences that may fall, that we may maybe see each other in the summer or something like that. So I'm excited about that. I'm not sure yet with the rest of our programming through the fall if we'll just go ahead and do it online, and then really ramp back up in 22 doing things in person. But the one thing that we did learn, in which a lot of people have coming out of the pandemic, is there are things that at the time we thought we would never do that we may now add to what we do. And so, doing a webinar here and there in the past, well, that's fine, but it's just not as engaging. But depending on what it is, you can reach so many more people and so many more bankers. And so, us still wanting to have in-person programming, but then finding the ones that we still continue to do live, but virtually. Right. And because it may be an opportunity, it's less expensive for the bank, more people can attend, kind of like ICBA Connect is going on, as we're recording this. And so, finding things that will continue, and then hopefully get back to some of the normal things we've done. But, I'm not going to say today, here's what we're doing, because we don't know. Yeah. But, I want to get back to that in-person thing just because I love people. But, but there are going to be some positives that come out of this, and some ways that we can continue to connect with people, even if it's only for 30 minutes or an hour at a time via a Zoom, or kind of what you do with social bankers or stuff like that. Just being able to get this group of people together that normally would see each other at a conference once a year, that you can do once a month or once a quarter or something like that. And so that's the kind of these smaller little communities that we've built. You've talked with for some of our alums, we have these round tables. And to be able to bring in whether it's compliance people, lending people, kind of the marketing people, the group that you've been in front of, but just getting them together and letting them talk, and just the benefit of talking to people like you that are spread out around the country. Those are things we're going to continue.
Well, it's super important work, and thanks for all you're doing to really support this community. And it's great to see your community right here on campus. Some of your friends that you haven't been able to see as often as well. So,
exactly.
So thanks for being here. It's great to see you in Memphis.
Awesome. Good to see you, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.